Councillor, councillors, can we start, please? Right. Well, can I welcome everyone to this December meeting of Colne Town Council? We have apologies from Andy Bell, Councillor Clamp, Councillor Howarth, and Councillor Robinson. Any other apologies being sent?
Not
Okay.
from me.
Thank you. Councillor Butterworth, yes. Are there any declarations of interest on any agenda items today? No? Thank you. Well, we'll go to the minutes of the last meeting. Is there any comments or corrections or inaccuracies of those, please? No? If not, can I have a proposer, please, and a seconder? A proposer for Councillor Wildman and seconder from Councillor Anna Wood. All those in favour? Thank you. Item 5 is the clerk's update. Gina, can you give us an update since the last meeting?
Yeah, so it's just items that aren't on the agenda tonight. The main thing I need to update on, just to say that the SPIDs obviously are still out and they will be brought back into the town hall in the new year. Then we can retrieve the data that we've got. It's probably good that they're actually up over the Christmas period when people are off. People are more likely to be, I don't know, messing about or whatever. So yeah, we may get some interesting results from that. You will notice in the finances, in the budget summary, that the Alkincoats Park budget is up to about 96%. This is because over the last week, we have had some damage to the wall in the secret garden. Now, unfortunately, I don't know if some of it was storm damage, but we did have a bit of vandalism as well, unfortunately. I think some of the kids were climbing, etc. So, unfortunately, we did go and have a look at it, and it just wasn't safe. To me, it looked like, I mean, if you just kicked the wall, that it would come down. So I spoke to members of the finance committee, and together with the chair of the committee, we authorised 25,000 to be taken out of the earmark reserve for Alkincoats to actually lower the wall to a safe level. Obviously, we will be retaining the stone, and it will be put into storage until a time when we can rebuild it. So that's one major thing that's happened in the last week. Small grant applications. It was decided at the last FES committee that the remaining budget, I mean, it was only a small amount, just £644, but they decided to award it to Alicia House for their community gardening project. So this is a project whereby the residents gain extra skills, more employable skills, and they actually go out and do gardening projects for the community. They were asking for, it was £1,000, but obviously we only had £644 left. But just for equipment, PPE, things like that, servicing for machinery. Yeah, so that was that. So that's the remainder of that budget gone. So that is now closed now for this financial year.
Do they not earn money? They do earn money, don't they?
Yeah.
When they come out to private housing, that they charge, don't they?
They do charge. I think it's no, it's not for profit. So they charge as little as they think can just cover the costs.
So did they have any money in the bank?
They do have some money in the bank. Yes.
Okay.
But I do think they do have money from, I think they got some funding, didn't they, for the gym from Sports England, was it?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, so that's that's obviously earmarked for that. But yeah, they do prioritise disabled people in the community and those that
I mean, I use them for my gardening in my backyard.
Right, yes.
And they come and clean my backyard and every spring, you know, and it's not relatively cheap, but it's okay and it's a good job. Yeah.
But I think just to renew the equipment and things. So
thank you, Jane.
CCTV, the project in Alkincoats Park, all the civils work and the column installation is now complete. We are just waiting for a date from Electricity North West now to provide the power to the columns. Obviously, once the power's in, then the cameras will go up, and we should get live pictures then. The Colne Neighbourhood Plan. I don't know if I'll refer this to Sarah just to update you. I know the new version of the National Policy Planning Framework has now been published. So obviously from that we can look at how our policies have done in terms of and obviously once that's been reviewed, then we will hold a meeting for the advisory committee. We're thinking that this will be towards the end of January. I don't know if you want to. Yeah.
So, terrifying. Burnley, their numbers really didn't come down, but it was noteworthy. If you remember, our numbers were 389. I mean, it's impossible, really. And also, you have to say we're not in control of the build out, and that's what you judged on. So we're down to 333. Now, if you remember, this is, I think, almost accidentally brilliant, because Pendle Council put in their final version, their consultation version, 148. And I disagreed with this because it wasn't within the stated 200 that you had to be within. Angela Rayner said you had to be within 200 to not start again. So I thought, we're bound to have to start again. And it will be awful.
That 200 was just for authorities that are in the process.
In the most advanced stages. Yeah. We were in the most advanced stages and you had to be within 200. So really, I didn't know why Pendle Council didn't put in 190, but they didn't. But I think God was on their side because 333 is clearly within 200. So, of course, there is the full examination to go. All the developers will argue with Pendle Council, so it's not over yet. But actually, there's a healthy little buffer there between 133 and 148. There's a healthy buffer of 15 for the arguing to happen over. So there's every hope that we might potentially, with a following wind, touching all the wood, being really superstitious about it, that we might succeed, and then we'll be able to move forward. And with our neighbourhood plan, we've allocated sites. With the update, Gina knows I'm working with various landowners to increase the sites that we've allocated. That'll take us to 2040. So there's every hope it might work. I mean, it's possible.
It is. Right, yeah, that's the end of the update of things that aren't on the agenda.
Has anybody got any more questions for Gina on an update? No? Item 6 is public forum, where we don't have any public here, so we'll park that item. Item 7 is reports from the borough and county councils. And can I just remind county and borough councillors that there's a 15 minutes allocation, so if you can please confine yourself to any major works or projects being delivered in Colne. That'd be good. Councillor Sutcliffe.
Thank you, Chairman. More than happy to keep under 15 minutes. So I've just got my usual little list. Something that's been irritating a lot of local residents for a long time is the caravans on Rook Street. And whilst I can't go into too much detail, we will see a resolution very soon. So I hope that's really good news and in time for Christmas for the residents in that area, particularly Church Meadows, who've had a lot of antisocial behaviour in their properties there. I wanted to pick up on grit. We're very lucky that we've had a lovely warm end to the year, and I know Alice contacted me about gritting, and she just wanted to ask quite a simple question that I guess asked quite a lot. Can you use grit on side streets? Yes. Yes, that's absolutely what the grit in the bins is there for. Please use it. It's not to be used on private property, but anywhere where it's a public highway or a footpath, please use it. That's what it's there for. And if you do see any empty grit bins, let me know. We can get them refilled. Lessons have been learned from last winter when some of them were left empty. So yes, please do let me know. Because we've had quite a warm winter and because we haven't had any grit on the road, we've actually been doing quite a lot of new road lines. So double yellow lines, white lining. It's something that isn't normally done in the winter because it has to be a dry, clean surface. But because of the weather, we've been able to kind of get some extra work done. So hopefully you've seen improvements. I've seen quite a lot of new double yellow lines. The junction round Barrowford Road, that's been done where it meets Fivery Way. And I know that that's welcome from the residents because people have been obstructing the junction there. So that's really welcome. Something that I'd like people to keep an eye out for is graffiti on road signs. Had a lot of that, particularly around the Asda roundabout. You've probably seen some on the Chevron signs there. Had it cleaned off. It's not the best job in the world, but at least it's not obvious graffiti. They now just look mucky. So see if we can get them done again to get them properly smartened up. But yeah, if people can keep their eyes peeled, I think it's just one of those things that really lets us down. And I know that Sarah's been tackling some other bits of graffiti around the town as well. And that's really all I've got, unless anybody has any other.
I do.
Has anybody got any questions for Ash?
I do. I've been having a little bit of campaign reporting on Love Clean Streets. Posts that did have signs on, but nobody knows what they did have. And I found about half a dozen of these posts recently, and I've reported them to LCC, and they've come back. We've inspected the post, no further action. And some of them are in conservation areas. I just think either posts should have signs or take the post away because it's pointless. I'll send you the numbers on my Love Clean Streets.
Happy to investigate random posts. As long as from an LCC point of view, if they inspect it and it's safe, that's the main thing. Obviously, I understand the clutter thing, understand it in a conservation area, but it's so long as they're safe. And the other thing is they might not belong to them. It might be something that belongs to the district council instead. So finding the ownership of a post could be a nightmare.
And I see that. I see it's troublesome, but these things sort of build up. And as I say, in the last couple of weeks, I found half a dozen empty posts.
Councillor Anna Wood's got a question for you, Ash.
Thank you, Chair. I know you mentioned the roundabout at the Asda wine walls. I have had one or two complaints that drivers are misreading the chevrons because of the overgrown edging. Can that be looked at, please?
Already been done. I literally chased it up this week. It was reported about 8 weeks ago, something like that. No action. Sometimes it depends on nesting season and all sorts of things. I get that excuse quite a lot. It doesn't always wash because I know it's not always nesting season, but that seems to be a standard response. So I've gone back and chased it up, but because it's concern for crossing the roads as well there. So thank you.
Councillor Chamberlain.
Yeah, do you know in regards to the grit bins, people keep stealing the contents with especially around Waterside area. There's whenever there's like a little bit of a cold spell, there's normally a van that goes around, fills the contents of the grit bins up, and then drives away with said contents of the grit bin. I mean, the top one at the top of my street never gets thankfully it never gets touched. But we use it to obviously do our street in harsh conditions, but is there something we can do to keep an eye on that, or?
Officially, it's there for public use. It's not to be taken away in any sort of great quantity like that. The problem that you've got is how the grit belongs to LCC, and so it will be a police matter that they are stealing from LCC and proving that, and police using their time in order to do something about it. It's one of those, I'm afraid, that would probably just have to let it go, which is unfortunate. But I mean, yeah, the best thing that can happen is a quiet word with somebody that's doing it regularly. If it's a sign written van or anything like that, that we knew it was a business, then we can usually sort of have a little chat with them and say something. That's the best course of action.
Yeah, it's an unmarked van. It's not really.
Okay. No, probably not what we.
Councillor Lord.
I'm a bit of a dinosaur and I never used clean streets. I just got on with whatever anyone was asking me to do.
You want to put your
but I use it now and I love it. So I tell everybody else to use it. We all get lots of messages. Can you do this? Can you do that? Brick bin, it's empty. It's just everything. Sarah knows, it's just everything on there. And people need to use it. So I've started saying that to people. Download the app and go on there and report it. But if you don't get anywhere, come back to me. I think everybody should be using it. It's simple enough and there's so much on there. I reported some hedging down Barrowford Road. Some friends of mine walk from Barrowford and up to Asda or Boundary Mill, and he's in a chair, a motorised, scooter thing. And they had to go into the road so I reported it and it was done the week after. It was trimmed back and they were over the moon, so yeah, we should be encouraged.
Saying it's worth using and it gets it done. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any more questions for Ash? No. Sarah, Borough Council.
So I've got a big list, so I'll speak quickly. Number one, you remember last month there was the TPO potentially for the Skipton Old Road big horse chestnut. That was put on. Just want to give you that update. I've had bad news on the street signs project. I did all the maths on the initial estimate to me that each repainted cast iron street sign was £60. And I said, got the money from Colne Area Committee, and I was really excited for the first time the whole list was going to be done. And then they wrote back and they said, our contractor now says they're £75. So I have to go back to Colne Area Committee. All we're doing is the first 25 off the list. That project goes on. Kieran and I went round Waterside and Vivery and bizarrely Trawden and looked at all the houses that Pendle Council had got on their list, which they admitted was out of date and not complete, for empty houses. And we took Philip Spur with us, and we took the lady that's in charge of sort of housing, Sarah Whitwell, with us. And they have agreed action for Colne. They are going to hire an empty homes officer. And what became apparent is it's not to do with the empty houses so much, it's different segments. So you've got houses that are unlivable in, burnt out, no windows, boarded up. You've got houses that are terribly decayed but have a resident, and the resident could be an owner-occupier or could be a tenant, and you'd have different approaches there. And then you've got houses that are empty, but they're absolutely great, and we want to monitor them and we want to get people in them. And Philip Spur agreed with us that, one or two of these houses on the street can really affect a street adversely, and that we should be actively monitoring it. So I'm really, really pleased about that. And the police have done another of those Bin a Banger campaigns, and our list of abandoned cars has also commensurately gone down. I had a really positive conversation about King George V playing field. We had a quote for about £3,500 to make a 9x9 pitch at the top. The head of Colne FC rang me today and said, unofficially, but he's going to write to me officially, that they will take over the maintenance for that. So that gives a point to King George V playing field, and we're waiting for ramps to reach it safely. David will talk to you about the Keighley Road Conservation Area. and where that's up to. Waterside Warriors have been given a quote by Pendle Council for improving Essex Street. And there are things that they can do themselves and for free in applying for grants, like orchard trees or hedging. And there are things that they might come to us at Cone Area or you here to do, and things they might fundraise for themselves. But that's positive improvement for Essex Street. And David.
So on the Keithley Road Conservation Area, we haven't seen any of the actual words, but feedback was mixed, apparently. Some people support it, some people had some constructive comments or some negative comments. We don't know yet. So we'll wait to see the feedback on that one, and then that'll be decided as to whether to make that a brand new conservation area. On the planning applications, you go back to your minutes from last time. Basically numbers 1, 4 and 6, which we made no comment or supported, they were all granted / approved. And the appeal in number 3 is progressing. The only other planning application that came to Cone Area that's of interest is the one at the part of Bunkers Hill. Remember we master planned the whole of Bunkers Hill for the neighbourhood plan with a big sort of 45, 50 houses in total. So part of it's come forward, and what we want to do is to make sure all of it comes forward. It's getting those different landowners of that site together and say, let's put in a cohesive scheme that fits in with the neighbourhood plan. So we effectively deferred that one in order to promote those.
We heard that the plan existed, didn't we?
But the plan is developing, yes. So that's it really on that.
Oh, sorry, I just thought of something else. Behind the market, which is obviously proceeding to a June opening, there were some problems potentially in that a potential market operator has come and given their feedback, and it's really positive. There is a potential market operator, an experienced one, and they've said they're worried about noise transference. So Pendle Council has hired acoustic experts, but it is potentially possible that no flats at all can be above the market. In which case, what they'd be looking for would be workshop spaces that, you know, so for example, I don't know, if you're selling dress material and you stall, the workshop above the market will be making dresses, or I don't know, it's make it here and sell it there type idea. It's a potential, it's uncertain at the moment. So that puts greater focus on the little row of houses behind the market. And Ash and I were especially keen that these should be architecturally interesting, perhaps tall to take the views in that are lovely. We were talking about, could they be live work spaces? They're obviously super urban. We asked them to do something special and different. And I'm sorry to report that they came back, they said they'd exhausted all our ideas, none of them were viable. And as a result, we could have 7 completely bog standard little 2-bed terraced houses, like we haven't got those already. And we're a bit disappointed, but it's all to do with the grant money for the market and making that stack up against the original application. So we tried, we put our efforts in, we did not succeed. There you are.
Councillor Lord.
Sarah, why can't they have flats upstairs now?
Noise.
Yes, the feeling is
Sorry?
noise.
Oh,
So
okay.
so the feeling is obviously the food hall area, which apparently is going to be a series of shipping containers that are going to be brought in on their sides and tipped over. Apparently, avant-garde. This will work longer hours, you know, be perhaps 9 o'clock at night. And the feeling is that there is no way, or potentially there isn't, to stop the noise transference in the flats. And then they said, well, the worst possible case scenario from a market operator perspective is that we have a buyer for the flats who wants to buy all of them in a one, but the people who live in the flats might then complain, and then that would lead the market to close early, which would then make it not sustainable, which would then make it make a loss, which would then make the whole project back to where we were before. So we have to look at that really seriously. And when I say we, I don't mean me, I mean acoustic experts.
I must have missed something somewhere. I've not heard about this. I'll go and see Philip tomorrow.
Will that mean that I mean, we needed those properties to make the money stand up, and so it'll be I mean, have to scrimp elsewhere, I
Yeah,
presume.
no, I thought that, Mary, because that's what they were saying to begin with, wasn't it? But now they're saying, I don't know, because they were saying that they needed 1.5 million. I think this is in my memory, 1.4 million from the flats to help support the rest of the market. But now that they appear to now be saying, oh, they were never going to be supporting the market. They were only going to be, covering themselves. That's what they're saying now. Philip Spur. So yeah, they're only covering themselves now, so it doesn't make any difference. I don't know. What's important though is that they originally went with the plan, with the bid, saying that they were going to provide 22 homes. And that's been whittled down, whittled down, whittled down. And now, worst case scenario, we're only looking at 7.
More questions to Sarah?
When you're talking about the units above the market hall, up there for servicing stalls, or would they be being hired out as well? Work units to hire out that people could.
Yeah, so these units were originally flats. They were
Yes.
residential flats. So that was the original plan, and it's just the analysis of these market operators that's now potentially throwing that into doubt. And they're saying that in one of the markets they run, this kind of workshop makers sellers thing works well and might make the retail section of the market more successful.
So they will be linked with the store holders.
Well,
the businesses in the market.
I don't think it would be. I mean, I don't know, but that's the idea.
Yeah.
But I suppose, Michael, it could be someone who wanted a workshop to do something. Yeah, yeah, it would be that'd be as well. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Right. Can we go on to item 8 then? Finances. We've got paper 8A. Is there any questions on that paper?
I've tried to make it as big as I could to keep it on the one page, otherwise it goes over 2 pages. I mean, the other thing is I could do it landscape, but then you'd have about 4 pages or 5 pages.
Can I ask?
Being short-sighted, I'm sure.
So short-sighted, you find it easy. I'm terribly short-sighted. I can see it half the side. You're perhaps long short-sighted.
Can I ask what point this is in?
Is it in 10 point, 12 point?
I think it's
Nah, 8, I
10.
would.
8?
But
8?
when I'm doing the printout, I basically look at the percentage and I put it up as much as I can before it goes onto another page.
It's not. It's not
Because
12.
you
It's not
get-
even 10. It's less than that. It's not 11. Tiny.
Can I say, Chair,
Sorry.
standard
It was printed
practice,
on me, yes.
standard practice to make it legible is no less than 14 point. If it goes on an extra page, at least people will be able to read it. Otherwise, even if looking at it on a screen, you're going to have to.
But you'll have half of it on one page and the other half of it of the line on another page.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that would get yeah.
Well, you'll have to do it in landscape then.
Or if I do it on A3, I'll try it on A3.
Yeah.
It don't matter whether anybody short-sighted or from cataracts or whatever, they still have to be entitled to read something.
So is there any questions? No. No? No? Right, so moved by Howard, seconded by David. Right, the next one is 8B. Anything on 8B? Right, moved by Councillor Coburn Pratt, seconded by Councillor Anna Wood. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. Item 9 is number 2, Albert Road.
Okay, so in the papers that I left on each space, basically the planning application has been approved for number 2, but with quite a few conditions attached to it. So I think if we're adhering to all the conditions, I think it will add quite a lot of extra expense onto the project.
Anybody?
But yeah, which is why it's come to this, just to discuss it, to see what people's views are on it.
Chairman, so that everyone can get into mind where it's coming from. I asked you to let Gina show the photograph of she's on there. What can see of the shot last year between 1890 and now. And more important, there are 3 photographs of the back of the service.
Before you share it, if you go and find the document, and it's in the so it's in the full council folder, the planning, and it's under 2 Albert Road. So they're all there. I think you'll have to open each one and then share each one individually.
That's before the town hall was built. Is there like a ginnel between?
Did you use the thing at the bottom to enlarge it? No, the other one is the minus of the there's like a blue indicator on the right hand side. Yeah, so you can just move that. Yeah.
That's it.
So you can see there's a gap in between where number 2 Albert Road is and the next block. So that was 1890, is that one?
That's 1890.
Yeah. See the actual detail.
60. When it was first built, or before the town hall was built, it didn't have 2 doorways. It was like a lot of traditional shops with the door in the middle and a shop window either side of the door. But when she goes on to the next photo, which is 1900, which was 5 years after the town hall was built, it had been changed to a door at either side. Yeah. And as far as I can tell, the street sign that was on it in 1890 is still the same one that's there now. On the list of painting. Yeah. Well,
the other one.
Next one.
As it is now.
There's 2 doors now.
While we're on that one, the 2 vertical bits either side, the extremes of the 2 doorways, I have a feeling they couldn't say, well, initially when it was built, there was one with a similar pattern on it with the grooves running the length of it, running across the top. And I don't think that's there behind this is what's there now. Well, we weren't there. No, that is where one of the worries comes, because one of the conditions is when we start stripping it back, we've got to at that point stop, so we can decide where we're going to go and what we're going to do, and then we've got to put a supplementary permission in for the materials, etc., we want to use. Now, if we have difficulties getting something approved, then we're stuck with a shop that can't be used because half the shop front's off. And there's no going back, because I've no doubt when we take some of that off, it's so old, it will probably fall in bits.
It's raining.
And it's actually raining in that behind there, in the shop front as well.
Yeah, just
So
at the shop
I would
front.
think it's good,
The way-
whatever's there's gone.
It probably just like every single one of the shop fronts all the way up that side of the street, they all rain.
Mm.
Every single one.
Mm.
And whether it's been done, whether it hasn't, they just rain.
But when it is raining, and it makes you wonder the state of the wood for rot, etc. at top, doesn't it?
If Steve can just go back to the first picture or there. That, if you see that rail at the top of the windows,
We don't think that's there.
and it was continuous on those first three buildings, which isn't there now. If you look at the model, and if you look at that board that's there now, there between the post that goes up and what was the sign, you can see brick or stone at the back of it. So the chances of there being something at the back that's usable, I think, are pretty, yeah, but somewhere between nil and not. And you can see there that the next two, in fact, they've been changed because there's only one window in number 4.
And the shop door isn't the original door.
No.
Because I had a look at it today. The one at the other side may be an original door, but
No,
it's not heavy enough.
Original from when it was made into 2 doors, but it's not original to the first building.
Mm. Yeah. Dorothy?
Just going off the subject completely, looking at that frontage, I feel it might not have been possible, I don't know, but I feel we could have used that for displays, you know, for the blues, Christmas, and I don't know why we haven't. I remember mentioning it to Nathan and he said why, I think, but I don't know. I can't remember what he said, but I do think maybe next year, if nothing's been done, I think we should put, you know, something in there, Easter, whatever, just to brighten it up a bit.
There was a big puddle just in there this morning, a big puddle of water.
And
That's where it's coming in.
and there is an awful lot of, can I say, junk that is left from the last use that we were given, which I think was I think of the right expression, picking apart.
So what I'm trying to get at with those photos you've seen up to now, Chairman, is I think it's very difficult to start tearing wood off that front to see what's there without knowing whether we can continue afterwards. I can see where the planning officer is coming from and saying, you know, we want to know what you put in there and what you're doing, but you can't do this and you can't do that till we have a look and see what's there, because by the time we know what's there and what's salvageable, the shop front's gone, and we don't have the choice then of patching it up and giving it a lick of paint, for instance. That couldn't be done once you've ripped it off. So it makes it difficult. Now, do we want to deal with the front now, or do we want to deal with the rear as well? Because there are problems at the rear as well, equally. I'm quite happy to do it either way.
It's from Sarah.
So just for the town councillors that obviously weren't at Cone Area and haven't read the report from Growth Lancashire, Pendle Council retains some sort of conservation experts. I say experts, I don't agree with them, but they are experts, and they are the experts for conservation applications, listed buildings, conservation area, etc. So all of these conditions came from the report of the conservation experts. And I completely get what David's saying about the no going back situation, but I also support the conservation experts, because there's nothing worse than with an old building thinking, right, I'm going to, I don't know, replace all the, I'll tell you what, I had a perfect example in our house. We've got this bath in our house that had 1970s bright yellow melamine all the way around it. And we were going to completely redo this bathroom with the 1970s melamine all around this bath. And we ripped off the first lot of the melamine, and underneath it was carved mahogany. And the carved mahogany went all the way round. And that's the thing about old buildings. You just have to change your mind. We weren't going to do what we were going to do because the carved mahogany was there. And old buildings give you uncertainty, and I totally get that. You can't say, oh, we're going to have all new. If you don't know, you don't know. It's quite possible that David's absolutely right, Mary's right, it's rained in, there's just some rotten wood, or perhaps the old entablature had already been replaced. We genuinely don't know. So I get what the, you know, Growth Lancashire bloke is saying, because he's saying investigate, retain the original fabric, augment where appropriate. And I get what David's saying, which is that's really annoying because of scheduling, and we don't exactly, when we start off, know what we're going to do. And Gina would say the same from a budgeting perspective. And old buildings are really annoying like that. I think that we've got to be really sensitive with this front. We didn't put any extra conditions on this. We passed it as it was presented to us with the officer's report. My feeling, we're about to go on to the back, is that I disagreed with the chap that wrote it, in that the extension, he said, had to be entirely of natural stone. And I said this to Gina. I said it wouldn't bother me if it wasn't, it's round the back. But he then wrote this big thing in the report saying it was an alien material within the conservation area and highly visible. And I was thinking, is it really that visible? But, you know, so that would be the thing, that if we're going to sacrifice anything and perhaps go for a variation, that would be the thing. And I think you agree with that, don't you? I don't know what Ash thinks. That would be the thing that's the least impact. But in terms of trying to save any original fabric, architraving, doors that are original, we should strive to do that. And ultimately, I think it will be cheaper. If we replace one of the doors, but not both of them, it should be cheaper. And we're not replacing that 1900 door. That's my view.
Chairman, can we now have a look at the 3 photographs from the back that are on the computer? Doesn't matter which you do first, because all 3 show a similar thing. It is visible from upstairs in small committee room, but obviously it's dark. So I got 3 pictures this afternoon.
The one that says Back Street.
Yeah, yeah. Now, if you look at that one, the cement render, there's breeze blocks that have been cement rendered. There are flat roofs. There are roofs with a slope just on one side. There's a multitude of all sorts. And can we just look at other 2 quickly, please, Steve? That one is bigger than what you think because it's the other end of the block. It's behind the vets, and it's got some natural stone on gable end. The rest of it is fake, artificial, whatever stone, whatever you want to call it. It's nowhere near a flagstone roof. It's cement tiles. That's horrid, yeah. And if you look at the other, then there's that thing with all mesh railings and gate round. And if you look at the third one, that is all cement render and all sorts. And I think to be honest, I think the extension, because it's not that big, at the back would have done if it had had a decent looking roof on it and all tidied up. I think it would have done with cement render on. And I think to put conditions on number 2, saying you've got to do this, you've got to do that, on a terrace that has already had the precedent set, and there's a multitude of all sorts of materials, because if you look on that photo, if you look at the one where the maroony coloured garage door is, that's got asbestos roof on, there's some tile roof, there's some flat felt roof, there's everything. And I think it's totally unfair when the precedent's been set to say you've got to have it all in natural stone, and on the roof you've got to have stone tiles on. And if we could do a compromise and say we'll take the conditions off the back and let you cement render it, then I think we would have enough money left in the budget, possibly, to do what you want us to do with the shop front and the shop door.
I did try to say this to Gina in the week before, to say if we could do the front, we could try to do something about the back. But she said no, not as aggressively as that. So we just went with the officer's recommendations. It's as simple as that. We obviously can't change our mind because the decision is made. We went with the officer's recommendations. You know, David just whispered to me, why don't you on day 1 start the investigation on the entablature architraving, meanwhile be cracking on with the sash windows on the first floor, be cracking on with the interior of the flat, etc. And then you could go for a variation based on evidence on this. And, you know, I thought it was very odd that I said that to Gina about this sort of, it's so prominent. Obviously, Stanley House Vets is far more prominent than this. I was a little bit, as I say, I don't always agree with this chap. But he is the expert, of course, and we're always taught that we're to believe the experts wholly. But you know, I would say that you've got compelling evidence to say we're doing a better job than these, and it's not that prominent in the conservation area. It's not like it was on a corner. I think if it was where Stanley House Vets was, you'd be, you know, that concrete roof is totally wrong there, for example.
Chairman, the other alternative, and I think it's probably from officers and myself's point of view, I think the other place to save some money to pay for the extra that they're demanding that we do on the front is to not do the upstairs. And that does make it a lot more viable, is to not do the upstairs at all, which we don't need to do, because the window frames upstairs are in better nick than the woodwork downstairs, and we could leave the upstairs windows as they are and just paint them, and we don't need planning permission for that anyway. So we could leave that as is and leave the windows in that Sarah and several other people don't like the looks of, and I can see where they're coming from with that. But that is an alternative, is to cut down on costs and not do the upstairs. But I don't think we can crash on with the front until we know what they're going to allow us to do and what they're not going to allow us to do. Because once, as I said, once that shop front's off, they've got us, haven't they? We've got to finish it, and we've got to finish it by doing whatever they say. And another thing I just want to say, and get this off my chest, Chairman, it is blatantly obvious from the report that went from Growth Lancashire to your committee. It is blatantly obvious if you read that report. You might have to read it 2 or 3 times before you grasp it, but it is blatantly obvious. They have not been on site and had a look. Yes, they have definitely not been, because there's no mention of all other shops down that terrace being all grotty and horrible at back, and there's no mention of most of the shops at the front of that terrace having all the old features removed in previous years. There's no mention of it at all. I am 100% certain they have not even been and had a look at it.
Yes, Sarah.
I forgot what I was going to say now, unfortunately. I do feel there's a way forward, and I do feel that it would be really sad if we miss the opportunity to make a new flat in the town centre, which we're all pro. It's in the neighbourhood plan that we want more people living in the town. Obviously, any good work that we're doing on the ground floor will be not so good if you look up, because it won't be in keeping, because we won't have a lovely sash window. So I do think that would be such a missed opportunity. I would really hope that we do both the flat and the whole of the front facade and the shop and so forth. I feel that the argument, if there is, for variation is to do with what's going on around the back.
Mm. So if
we could do the front, but if we don't get the variation back, we go. And as it stands, if you look at all of it together, what they want us to do at back, what they want us to do at front, and the cost of the upstairs, it does not stack up. It is not viable. So there's only 2 options, well, 3 options. Either we only do the downstairs and we don't do the upstairs, which I think is correct, or we don't do anything at all, we won't do, which is not good. The other option is to appeal on the grounds of the grounds that we don't agree with the conditions imposed on us. And we could appeal the conditions. You don't have to appeal because we've had it refused. You can also appeal if you don't agree with the conditions they put on, and I think we would win if we appealed on the conditions, particularly with the state of the rest of the building around the back.
David.
Can I suggest, as you say, I think conditions 7 and 8 are the 2 relating to the rear. So I'd apply for a variation on those, because you've got compelling evidence that is not reflected fully in that Growth Lancashire report. And the officers based it on that. And I think that is very compelling evidence to support a variation. You can simplify that, come up with something that's aesthetically pleasing, but not ridiculously expensive.
Their original thing was,
yeah,
it was Welsh slate.
And that would free some cash
to
do some more work on the front.
Yes, yes. No, I think that's what you should do.
Anybody else?
I think we'd have been better if Growth Lancashire hadn't got involved in the first place. But,
Growth Lancashire have to get involved, whereas a listed building next door.
We don't have an in-house historical like Rosemary Lyons, or she's gone. So you have to outsource. Is that
I mean,
correct?
it would have been entirely possible. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time that people judging planning applications went against officers' recommendations. It would have been quite easy to say, yes, we agree with conditions 1, 2 and 3. Well, without looking at them, I can't remember the numbers. But we don't agree with 6, 7 and 8. So, you know, that story doesn't wash. That because it was the officer's recommendation, we had to do it. Because many a time the officers will recommend approval and it's refused, and
recommended refusal and it's approved. So, you know, you can knock conditions in and out all the time. I'm quite happy to move, Chair, that we go ahead and apply for the very onerous conditions on the back to be removed. Because when you, I mean, to say that it's in a prominent position, the only prominent position is stood in the kitchen of the town hall, or Gina's office, or the small committee room. That's where it's prominent from. So that again leads me to believe that they never came and had a proper look. If they'd had a proper look, they'd have realised that the door was hardly original, because it must have been fettled several times looking at it this morning. Didn't look closely at the second door, the door that just goes to the flat. So I'm happy to move that bit, and once we know we can have those conditions off, we can get on, do some more exploratory digging and poking to see if there is anything behind there. I suspect there is from looking at it today. And once we've done that, we can look at doing a phase 2 renovation of the flat, and you know, yes, it would make actually a very large flat when you look at it, because perhaps people don't realise it goes across number 4 as well. So there are there would be at least 2 very decent sized rooms. There are possibly problems with how you would where you would put kitchens, and it needs a bit more than I think was thought at first. So that I think would need looking at once the shop is done. And before the shop can be done anyway, it needs a new toilet downstairs and kitchen facilities. And every building from there down until you get to the vets, I'm pretty sure, has got a flat roofed rendered extension
at the back,
or if not an extension, an added thing. Oh, because even the one with the pitched roof has a flat roof up to the building, which is probably attached to the building, and I would guess that's a separate storage. I can't think what shop that is, I can't work it out from the back. So I think that is the way forward. So I'm happy to move all that, Chair.
Brian?
Is Howard asking for just conditions 7 and 8 to be
I think so.
amended?
The back bit. Have you got a seconder for that? Anybody? Brian, right. All those in favour of that thing to do issue for those 2? Yeah. No. Okay. Right. Go on again. Well, I think that's carried anyway. Yeah. The back, the thing that's actually coming out of the house is flagged on the roof, and it's just the little bit at the end that's.
If I may just say, Mary knows this, of course, we didn't have the benefit of having Neil Watson there at the Colne area. We had an inexperienced officer who doesn't really know Colne, so it was quite difficult. We asked some questions, but we weren't getting answers, not necessarily for this application, because we had a lot of applications. So it was more of a question of, we'll go with the officer's advice, the Growth Lancashire officers. It wasn't a usual situation. I'd already expressed these views about the extension to Gina, and I would have asked Neil Watson had he been there, but he was in London giving evidence to the NPPF
Well, I asked, I was the only one in here with him and Lynn, and I mentioned it, and he just said, it's not part of my skill set or something. Anyway,
I thought this officer had been there for many, many years. I'm sure he was there when I started and you started.
he only looked young, he didn't look that old.
You were there, Dorothy. Can I just make one other comment, Chairman, before we move on quickly? If we do go down that road of action, which we are going to do, to have those two conditions removed with a variation at the back, that would then free more money up to do the front and the upstairs. But we don't know how much the shop front is going to cost us still. So what could be a suggestion is to do the shop front, and because we are and put the windows in upstairs, the new sash ones. But because we are doing most of the interior work upstairs in house, we could defer that and do the shop front, finish the extension at the back if they'll give us permission, you know, to do it how we want to do it. Do the shop front, do the upstairs windows back and front, and not do the inside until a few months later or whatever, because we don't want to be working at shop front and not do the upstairs windows, because if we're going to have to scaffold it and all sorts, we might as well get the lot done, because we don't want to be paying for scaffolding to go up twice. So I think we could get the windows done and the downstairs, and then because we're doing it in-house, we can do the inside when we want. And if there's however much money there is left, we know we can get on with it then, don't we? And get the lot done. So get that condition for back. So if Gina gets
There'll be certain documentation, won't there?
And is that?
Get the agent to do that. That's not a problem. And then as soon as we get an answer, we crack on the front. But I wouldn't touch the front until we've got that condition.
Thank you. We've done that. We've voted on it. Right. Item 10 is Town Council Budget 2025, 2020, 2028, it says.
Yeah, it is a 3-year budget. Obviously, we're mainly concerned with 25-26, which is what we'll be basing our precept on. So, the budget, the original budget that came out, which was more of a wish list than, you know, with things that, you know, are good to do or nice to do, but unfortunately we can't really afford it, and that was up at 35% increase. Now everyone agreed that that was too much to increase, and I was asked to try and bring it down to 10%. Now I did bring it down to the 10%, but I had to shave quite a lot off. So when it went back to the Finance Committee, actually looking through the codes, they actually decided that actually it was a bit too restrictive. Based on future services, there's no room for growth, etc. So it was decided at the last finance meeting to go for a 15%, and the extra 5% to just include that as a contingency line, and transfer that to reserves to build up the reserves for any future eventualities, so it can smooth out any deficits in future years. Because we have taken quite a lot from reserves and haven't managed to replace it all. So there is, I think I put it in the, if you read the report, I put it in the council governance section, and it's just labelled contingency, and the extra 5% is about, I think it's 47,000 or just under. So that's what that line is in the budget. So that represents a 15% increase on the current bandy precept.
So that's item 13 on your report, isn't it? That's
It is, yeah,
47%,
yeah. So point 13 on the report.
Yeah. And point 12 has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bullet points. Of,
Yeah, so that's what I had to actually take out of the original budget to make it stack up to the 10%.
right, questions? Any questions? Yes, I'll ask the chairman of FES if he would like to.
What do we want to
comment.
know? Well, as Gina, as it's been said, that you do always have a wish list, what you want to do, and you very rarely can do it, all of it anyway. But the initial figure, and I think Gina would agree, and she's probably thought the same before she disclosed the figure to us, the original figure was astronomical and it just wasn't on at all. But in the cutting back, it became quite clear that it had not taken a lot of things out of the wish list. It were actually cutting back on what we already had. And I don't think we could have survived and provide the services we want to survive on the 10%. There are one or two things we would like to do that we did have in wish list, and I'll just go through what one of them in particular was. Is quite often, such as Steve and Gina and Nathan, end up doing jobs in office that are a bit beneath them, really, you could say, because they're ending up having to do a lot of the office admin work, such as doing printing agendas and things like that to send out to people, and it's not really a job that they should be doing. Someone in their position, it should be somebody on a lower salary, just a general office admin person doing that sort of work, and we had hoped to get a part-time person in, and that was one of the things that we removed, weren't it, that post. And it's sad that that's had to be taken out, really, because apart from doing the things that we actually see Gina doing when we come in office, she does other things as well, because she spends a certain amount of time on neighbourhood plan. She spends a certain amount of time on other things, and I would rather be doing them tasks rather than printing, as I said, agenda papers for 17 people when there's nearly 100 pages in it each. And I think really we do need to try and get someone in a position doing some of the more menial tasks on a part-time basis, and we do need to try and fit that in. But that's one of the things we've had to cut out of our wish list, because we couldn't get it to stack up at 10%.
Can I just add to the reasoning on that as well? It also came through the appraisal process in that I was doing Steve's appraisal, and obviously we have grown as a council quite a lot in the last few years, and just the amount of day-to-day transactions is tripled. So it became quite obvious in Steve's appraisal that the majority of his time is actually taken up just doing data entry, which is obviously not really, there's a lot of skills that Steve has that we could be utilising. So that was another reason why we thought we could get someone in to do, like, say, accounts clerk stroke admin.
Can I ask how much the increase in national insurance that we're going to have to pay has meant that we're having to up our
It's just under £11,000. Yeah, and that's just simply the lower the threshold and the increase in percentage.
So in a sense, the town council's been ripped off. Just like a lot of local businesses have been ripped off, having to pay extra national insurance for their employees, ripped off as well. And we're not exempt. Some of the other councils, Abilene are exempt. Down at Parish Park.
So that was the question I was going to ask.
Is any that
do we have
are
any protection?
directly funded by the government actually get relief on it?
Okay.
But we're not directly funded, so
We have no money coming from the government at all, like anything.
Okay.
We don't get that, so we don't count, we don't laugh. We do have a grant, you know, it's not fair.
No, it's not. Yes, that was going to be one of my questions actually on the national insurance thing, because I mean, the business where I work, it's about 50, 60 grand. I've heard Pendle Leisure Trust might be £250,000. You know, because lots of people on minimum wage, that's going up as well. Don't forget, it's not just national insurance, minimum wage as well. So all these things are going up by ridiculous amounts, and it's, you know, who wants to employ somebody? So there you go. We have lost a half person or a full-time person because of the Labour government. Sorry, Labour. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So in terms of the budget, obviously I can see it's been a journey from 35 down to 10 up to 15. So, you know, I can see the journey's been there, and I can see the wish lists of various things as well, which obviously factor in. A couple of questions. Obviously in paras 5 and 6, you've got the obviously our treasury management policy, our reserves policy. And the fact that we're aiming, if we had 1.1 million, we should have a general reserve of a certain amount, earmark reserves of other amounts. I think on the earmark reserve, that's the one that obviously looks down against where we have. And we know why we've used it in recent years. And I think it's one of those ones whereby it's almost like we can look at that. If we don't comply with the reserves policy, we don't comply for a reason. And the reason is, A, we've used it, and B, we can go through our reserves and say this is what it's for, and that's what it's for, and that's why you have earmark reserves. We know things like the town hall or incidents at parks or things about neighbourhood plans or whatever may well cost us some money, and that's why we have earmark reserves. So, you know, we've got to run with that and bank whatever we can in terms of any surpluses. I think the big list in para 12, obviously, as you say, they're the ones that have had a look at the sorts of things. And I think, again, the lesson for those is that, you know, if you've got something, you're developing a 3-year plan, probably even looking 4, 5, 6, 10 years in the future. Those are the sorts of things where you start to say, yes, let's phase them in, let's defer them where we can, where we've got flexibility. If something's falling down, you've got to do it. But if something is a choice, then we've got a choice to defer it, like anybody managing their household budget would do. The penultimate budget, obviously the staffing, I think we touched on the need to have some sort of admin support, etc. We've also got the idea about a costing exercise for taking on additional services. And again, we've got one eye on whether Pendle Council wants to get rid of any other things. They seem to be taking the view at the moment on the various asset transfer things to keep everything now. Everything's got a possible revenue angle to it now. You know, we might make some money out of this. Might even garage sites in Laneshire Bridge.
Falling down.
The exec turned those down just by giving the Trawden lot theirs, and Laneshire Bridge didn't get theirs because they might one day become housing or revenue. Well, yeah, right, okay. Take away all the asbestos first, then. So I think we'll have to see how that one develops over time. Good to have a contingency, obviously. I think going through the budget, I went through various line by lines, etc. I think there's possibly a few more sort of income opportunities. And we touched on this in terms of the great phrase sweating the assets, or, you know, getting some extra involvement there. And I think if we're going to go for the idea of putting up the precept, then getting the message across to residents, businesses, etc., about why we're doing that and what we're investing it in, you know, again, do a compare and contrast. Compare Cone with Nelson, with Briarfield, with Barnoldswick, etc. You know, which town is the busiest and the best? Oh, it's this one, obviously. So I think with this, we've got some opportunities potentially when it looks at some of these income lines where we could potentially try to get a little bit more. I mean, allotments, we're not sort of raising any extra income there, perhaps. You know, we could do that. That's a standard policy. You know, we do subsidise the allotments. We should reduce that level of subsidy because we can't afford to subsidise it to that extent. That's why we discussed them in the past and why the fees go up. Events, obviously, again, we've got a magnificent events program. We've got loads of things going on. We get quite a lot of sponsorship. It's looking good. I noticed on this, the budget so far, the performance for the year so far, you know, that events income is looking really good and really strong. So, you know, again, we're getting people understanding that all these events, we've got the bid chipping in as well with a load of events as well. So that sort of thing is really good for the businesses and the people, etc. So again, other opportunities there potentially. If we look at another one on Primmett, that's another one. Cone in Bloom, opportunities there for a little bit of income there, sponsorship, etc. You know, there are things we can do potentially on some of those. I think I'm assuming the big jump in the CCTV costs, 112,540, sort of halfway down the page there. We're sort of going on this monitoring and maintenance, so we're sort of bought into this 38 to 40 grand cost, are we? I thought that might have
yes, that's they do charge so much per site.
Yeah.
And that is their charge. That includes obviously proactive monitoring. It includes the maintenance, etc., and the licenses and things like that.
Okay. But again, on our wish list back in Para 12, phasing in any new cameras or new services or whatever is something we can wait on and take our time with. Yeah, and I think that's an excellent headline. See, when it comes to the town council selling the new budget and selling the plans for the future, these are the sorts of headlines you want to bring in.
If I could just chip in here, not only that, but the network that we took over, the outdated network, was much smaller. We're covering a lot more of the town than Pendle Council would have done. We've got this expanded system.
And it's 24 hours a day, isn't it? With the monitoring.
Yeah. I'm pleased to see we're carrying on with some of the grant programs, things about public rights of way, countryside access, all those sorts of things we support. I think it's good we can still continue with those. Coming on to the blues, do we still have a sort of aim to try and cap it at 60 grand net? Because we're sort of drifting a little bit beyond that.
That was obviously originally the aim. Costs have gone up. So we were trying our best to stick to the 60. But just with even doing less, because Con Blue Society is slowly taking bits on. It was still coming over, so it's
okay.
And
I think one of the big things is that the people who are doing the marketing now are a lot better than the ones that we had before, the ones from Brighton. And because we don't get overseas group, they do a lot of heavy lifting to keep the number of tickets more than they would be if we didn't have that, because they're at it all every day and every week, aren't they, putting stuff out there? So I think that's gone up quite a lot, the marketing budget.
But ticket sales are decreasing for any festivals. I know there were quite a few last year that had to cancel. So it's obviously we keep working. We keep trying to think of ways to increase ticket sales. We've got different options this year, so we're doing like a afternoon and evening, just to try and promote more sales that way. But yeah, there's only so much you can do. We also offer discounts for certain artists, like the headline artists as well, to try and get through their databases, their mailing lists, to try and increase sales that way as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think as well, this will be the first year coming in when all three of the town's venues, the big ones, are the ones that are there, you know, and fully powered up and fully renovated and available. I mean, the Hippodrome twice the size, Little Theatre's got some extra capacity as well, and capacity around it as well. So people will get used to visiting those in the run up to next August. So I think that's quite a good idea.
Yeah.
If we can get the Mooney sorted out and get that as a venue again, you know, in place of the St John's Place, then I think that's a good step forward too. So,
well, I had a word with Nathan saying, could we use the lesser Muni at least, rather than St John's, because I don't think that does us any good at all.
Well, there has been negotiations, but I'll tell you in the the update bit.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think in terms of summary, I think there's been a good exercise done there. You've obviously gone a lot more line by line. The expense of flagpole servicing though is, you know, it's amazing, that one. You know, 1,500 quid to service a flagpole.
Well, it's not just that.
Portfolio of flagpoles.
It's the remedial works as well. It all goes in there, so it's not just the service itself.
Yes. Yeah.
And basically every year there's been remedial works.
Yes. And as we found this year, being able to reach the clock up there is an arduous task and a very expensive one.
It is. Yeah.
So I think if you go on to the council tax bandings, I think band D £191 at the moment. I think even if we looked at a 15% increase for the people of Cone, that only takes it to 220, which is only a £30 increase for the entire year for a band D. And you know, again, the messages we're giving out in terms of what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we're doing it, and the benefits to everybody, I think are quite strong messages. So, good stuff.
Thank you. You want to
take it, Chairman? We're going to want someone to move the budget.
Have we done that?
No, not yet. No, just discussing.
I'd just like to say, normally I try to say, can we make it a bit less, which is immensely it's a hypocrisy in a way, in an amusing way. When I was the chairman of the town council, there was a part-time person who worked a few hours a week, and when I was the chairman, we increased the precept. I think it was 306%. And I did a pie chart to explain to the people of Cone what we were spending it on, because 306%. And just to make you all smile, there was one person who wrote in complaint about this. A lot of people were saying, oh, good, I'm glad something's being done about children's playgrounds or benches. And the one person who wrote in complaint was a certain councillor, Lord Greaves, and he said it was an outrage and he wouldn't be paying it. And I wrote back to him and said, you live in Winewall, you won't be paying it. So I think that this year we're potentially on a precipice that I know something that Ash is very concerned about with the devolution. And I think, if we see anything from the Labour government, it's that certainly at this stage in their administration, they're just prepared to railroad it through, whether it's the NPPF, whether it's, councillors can determine planning applications, wind turbines, pylons, whatever it is, they're prepared to railroad it through. And the music that's coming out of Westminster at the moment is that they're going to go for this devolution and Pendle Council is going to be abolished. We don't know when that's going to be. Okay.
So I just want to intervene there.
Yeah, do.
You've got devolution and local government reform. They're not
Yeah.
the same thing.
No.
Getting devolution, we're not necessarily getting local government.
We don't know. We're in an uncertain position. All I'm saying
Just
is,
clarity.
yeah. All I'm saying is they're not really caring what we think That's quite apparent. They don't care what the WASPy women think. They don't care what the pensioners think. They're just going to go through and plough ahead. So we don't know what we're going to get, but it's clear that we're going to get some major changes. And it's quite possible that Pendle Council will go. And we are so fortunate here because we're parished. You know, compare us with Burnley. They're not parish there. That's major. It's so much worse for Burnley. I feel genuinely sorry for Burnley. Yeah. So we're really lucky here because we've got shiny ruby starlight benches or whatever it is. We've, you know, protected certain things. We protected our blues festival or whatever it is. We protected it. And so normally I say, oh, can't it be a bit less, etc. But I'm not going to say that this year. I think it's really important that we are not so hair-shirted, not because we don't care about the people of Cone and the Precept, but because we are the guardians, the custodians of not just this town hall, but loads of things that happen, from Christmas lights to children's playgrounds. And in a sense, if Pendle Council goes, we protect them. You know, that's why I keep saying things like, have we looked at the Mooney? Can we consider the car parks and all of that? Because I think that they're horribly exposed to people who aren't from round here, just thinking, well, that's ridiculous. We'll just charge for that, get rid of that, sell off that. And I think that, you know, this council, from that time when we had a part-time clerk and we didn't do very much, has grown very sensibly and well and guarded things for Cone. And I think people that know about it do appreciate the work that the council has done over years. And we've got it more to do, is what I'm saying. We've got it more to do. We've got to build on what we've done, and we've got to keep a weather eye out for what's outside of us and what we can do to protect the things that are important to people from Cone.
I concur with that. I think we are a well-developed parish council, and we can not throw our weight about, but you know, we are well, we're more confident about what we want and what we know.
Us to go for awards.
Yes. Yeah. Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. I just remind that it was the last Conservative government that started the nonsense of this devolution in Lancashire, but I'll let that pass because there is no doubt if you read any of the stuff that's been put out about devolution, this current devolution thing, two-tier local government will not exist. I chaired the committee of Pendle Council, the working group that came up that looked at parishing those bits that weren't parished. So that is why Cone now has its town council and Nelson has its. I think by then the others were already parished, and we were the two that were out on a, or Nelson and Cone were the two on a limb. And the increase, it's well worth remembering that the increase per week is 55 pence, which if you haven't got 55 pence, it's a lot. But in the general scheme of things, it isn't that much. We still have the problem that even with the new building that we've had, the buildings that make up the majority of the area are still in groups A, B and C, or bands A, B and C. As you get into the D's and E's, it is only the newer buildings that get there, and I doubt that we've got many up at the E, F and G end of things. So that does mean that £1 on the Precept here doesn't raise as much as it does in Kingston or Westminster or somewhere. So you get the absolutely ridiculous situation where a property in, say, Skipton or Colne or somewhere of a traditional terraced house doesn't pay, or a house in Kensington doesn't pay anywhere near the same. That's not just for our precept, that's the total precept. So I'm quite happy to move that, subject to the final notification of the base rate, which we probably won't know until the new year. Whenever we know it, that we accept the budget as laid out, and but the final figure has got to be subject to that base rate figure that, well, we'll get when we get, as it appears, the chief executive is off to Darlington pretty soon. That's Pendle, it's not you.
Not you.
I think we need to what we need to decide is if we want to go for the 15%, regardless of any changes in base rate. So, do we want to ask for the 15%, and then obviously if the base rate decreases, then our percentage will actually go over the 15%.
I think the problem we'll have there is we might not know soon enough. If it drops,
because we brought the next meeting forward as well. I think it's highly unlikely that we won't know what the base rate is at that time.
Yeah, it was same last year or this year.
I've got Councillor Hannah Wood and Councillor David Coburn-Price that'd like to speak.
Thank you, Chair.
Chairman, can I go at the end, because we need to tie the base rate down properly, because last year we didn't get to know the base rate of Pendle until after the final date for us to declare what we were setting the precept at. And previously, until Rose came, we always got to know what the base rate was at the December full council meeting at Pendle. It is not on your agenda next week. It is going at the end of February, which is after the final day for us to give the submission. So I want to put some additional wording in about the base rate when we finally move it, if I can, Chairman, but I'm quite prepared to go.
All right, okay. So we've got Councillor Hannah Wood and then Councillor David Coburn-Price.
Thank you, Chair. I'll concur with Councillor Clegg. We do need to take into consideration the new base rate that we are going to be getting. Thanks to David, we now know that we're not going to get it until after our meeting in February. So I will second Councillor Howard's proposal on the assumption that, what Zena was saying, the fluctuation could mean that we
go over the 15%.
Yeah. But I second that. No.
Councillor Coburn-Price?
I think you just stick with the 15%, and when the council tax base, not a base rate, because that's a bank thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, but the council tax base will adjust to the contingency, up or down. So you've got your 15% headline, and then the contingency takes the adjustment of the council tax base. Council tax bases as well tend to go up as well, because obviously there's a few more houses popping up here and there and everywhere. Number of empty houses, the amount of support may well go down. So, it could be a following wind.
Councillor Clegg?
Yes, Chairman. What is just said is basically right. And in an ideal world, and more years than not, it does go up, does the base rate. But in the last 10 years, it has gone down twice. One was because of the lockdown, and it was due to arrears, because council tax arrears comes into it, because if Pendle haven't collected the money, it's very difficult for them to pass it on to us. another thing that is a concern this year, I don't know the exact number of new builds there have been in Colne, but what I do know is that the number of electors in Colne has gone down. I also know that there are more properties in Colne than there was last year. That's because of new build, which suggests to me there must be more houses now with only one person registered at it, and they'll only be paying 75% of the council tax. That would bring potentially the base rate down. And whether it'll bring it down more than the number of new builds is going to take it up, I don't know, and I don't know where it's going to go. But what is a concern is because it's got to £1 million now, the total preset money for the year, is if it drops 1%, you're 10 grand away on your budget. If it goes up 1% on base rate, all right, you can extra 10 grand, but for every percent it goes down, you've 10 grand less in your budget. What we can do, we can fix the 15% as a direct 15% on the amount we drew last year. We can do it that way, or we can have it at 15% on the amount that the Joe Public pays. If we did that, if we fixed it on the amount of money we're saying we want, it could be that the actual council tax bill could go up by 14% or even less, or it could go up by 15.5%. And it's a gamble either way, isn't it? But if we don't know what it is, and we want to know the exact figure our income's going to be, we can fix it by the 15% on the base, on the rate, and we can say we want £1 million, blob, blob, and fix the rate exact. But I don't think we'll have the figures before we've got to fix it. Now, do we want to leave it over to the next month, which is an absolute latest we can do it because of our meeting schedule? But I don't think we'll know by then, so I don't think there's much mileage in it. But I'm happy to do it either way, Chairman. Well, they did last year. Well,
I think I emailed them last year to try and get some indication. Yeah.
I'll ask as well. Councillor Sarah.
I was going to be more strident. I was going to say, I think we should complain. I think it's a terrible situation that we're placing little parish councils in, as well as ourselves. I think Pendle Council have qualified their accounts again, so that none of their figures can be relied on, and that they've been a nightmare to deal with the bid in terms of they bill businesses that shouldn't be billed. They've not billed businesses that should be billed. They should get some feedback on their performance. They're making our lives very, very difficult. We're trying to do the right thing to set a precept fairly, and they're making it too hard for us. I think we should complain.
Right. I shall complain. Send a letter. Right, what we decided then?
Well, being honest, there is time to do it, isn't there, Gina? We can send it in at the next meeting, because the next meeting is only on 14th of January.
Meanwhile, I can email and see if I can get some more information.
So, Howard's already moved that we accept the budget. As regards the base rate part of it, can I suggest that we defer setting the actual preset part? We've accepted the budget and we've moved that. Right? Can I suggest we defer setting the actual precept amount to the next meeting on the 14th of January? In the meantime, we ask Gina to contact Pendle Borough Council and ask them to give us the figure. If they won't give us the figure, well, we'll have to do it blindly and give them a load of earache in the process.
Okay. Sensible, yeah. Do you want to vote on that? All those in favour?
Do we have a second after that? Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Ah,
Who
yeah.
did anybody?
Yeah,
Who
it's
seconded
Patricia.
it? Yeah. Yeah, Patricia seconded that, I think. Yeah. Okay. Oof. A lot. Item 11 is the Comtown Council Environmental Policy Statement.
So these next two items are basically policies that we need to have. And so just basically they are draft at the minute, but it's just to get your opinions.
Ooh. Excuse me.
Don't tell me you've got one with a load of
So
red.
I've got my red pen out, I'm sorry. Right, environmental policy.
Yes.
This is a companies you've copied, isn't it?
It's to be honest, it's something that was forwarded by our health and safety consultant.
Okay. So in paragraph 2, under the management will commit to, I don't quite know who the management are. That's a sort of
Okay.
mafia phrase, isn't it? Maybe the council commits to. On the second line at the very end, of course, it says company. So
Oh.
that shows me where they got it from.
Mhm.
Anyway, aside from the fact we've got management referred to, which presumably we should replace with officers or staff,
Mhm.
down in the bottom, in the very bottom paragraph, we've got employees and staff, the sort of intermingling. Let's pick a standard phrase of who we actually are. You know, we've got the council, we've got officers, and we've got staff as well, I suppose. You've got a minimize Z on the third bullet
Uh-huh.
below the management,
I thought I'd take them all
but
out.
you've got minimize right on bullets 4 and 5. You say that's why 5 and 6. Sorry, that's why I thought it was there. Skipping down to environmental objectives. Good to have objectives. Again, good for headlines to say, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? Are we succeeding? We all know objectives need to be smart, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. So setting them for 2024 is looking backwards. You want 2025 at least, possibly 25, 26 year, looking ahead.
Mhm.
If you want to have some idea, I don't know how many environmental incidents or accidents we have. Presumably it's nil. I've not noticed we've polluted a river or anything like
I've
that
never
in the
come
last
across
year or two. So, you know, that's a fairly easy one to achieve. I think in terms of reduce, reuse, recycle, when I used to do environmental policies, you used to think things like, just like we touched on the budget about the gas bill going up, electric bill going up, can we measure the kilowatts we use, kilowatt hours, compare one year to the next? We have a target of saving 5% of energy use or something. That's a sort of target and an environmental impact that you want to try and measure. We have council vehicles. How many miles do they do? Therefore polluting the world. Are they going to do fewer miles? Are they going to be better, more fuel efficient, etc.? These are sorts of things you can have as measurable objectives. Otherwise, that's it really.
You want to hand that in?
Can do.
All right. I'll put some
Sarah.
maybe. Yes, Sarah.
We the environmental audit for the building. SEAG's just had the East Lancashire Chamber out. They will come and do a full audit, you know, looking at how much you spend on electricity, etc., etc. Rather amusingly, at SEAG, I was thinking of complicated things we could do. We still might do complicated things involving exterior cladding or whatever, but the chap that came round just said, "You do know you've got a broken window." Didn't realise that. So there are simple things that you could do. For example, we had some door seals, some different things like that make a real difference, and they are part of helping to make this building more sustainable and also, you know, better for the environment because we're using less energy. So I don't know whether the East Lancashire Chamber would come out to you as a town council. We've already had the conversation that you're not a government funded body.
Yes.
You know, you pay business rates, etc. I could put you in touch with the chap.
Yes, you can send contact details. Obviously, once we've replaced the boilers, we will be in a better position. At the
Yeah.
moment, they're just
That would be a good headline.
yeah.
I don't know whether I got that here, but David's got.
I've written some down as well.
Right, thank you. Are we okay to move on? Next item.
Yeah, so I'll bring this to the January meeting as well
Right.
with the amendments.
It's item 12. It's sexual harassment and misconduct policy. Is this a new policy? Is it just been updated?
No, it's a new. Basically, legislation came in October this year, about sexual harassment with employees in the workplace. So yeah.
Anybody, any comments, issues?
This is obviously a first draft, and yes, it was based, and I did have to go through and make lots of changes, but yeah.
Yes, yes. I mean, there's lots of random formatting and bold this and
Yes.
indents here, left, right, etc., etc.
So I've got the employees.
It was mainly to get the actual
Yeah.
draft in front of you.
Yes.
So
The thing that surprised overall is it's very, very long. It's pages and pages, and it sort of repeats itself and goes through the things. And I thought, policies like this shouldn't really be longer than about 3 or 4 pages max. So I think, have a think about it. It makes points, it labours them, and it sometimes repeats them a bit later on, and you can simplify it a bit there. It's fairly, you're almost focusing on the person that wants to, make the complaint and the person that's responding to the complaint and how the council itself deals with it. I think there's those kind of things. So it does, as I say, sets roles and responsibilities. Then it goes through the formal journey of this and who does that, and the informal approach and the formal approach. I mean, the formal approach goes on for nearly 1.5 pages. When all you're saying is really you'll do this and you'll do that, and you'll write this down, and it'll be heard by the right people. So I think there's a lot there could be simplified. I think in terms of its approach, I was a bit alarmed to see the amount of extra training that has to be done to everybody. So I think you're going to be trained every few months by the sound of it. The councils have to be trained as well. The risk assessments for every single thing we do. Where was risk assessment? On the very back page, we go. Risk assessment should be completed when arranging an event with external partners. So every single event we do will have a risk assessment. All events are subtly different, of course.
Obviously we do risk assessments for events anyway, but it's just an additional bit to add on.
I know. Well, it's that additional thing again. You're talking about the workload things. Where someone will be lone working. Again, in a small number of people, someone arrives first. By definition, they're lone working. Someone leaves last. They're lone working as well. So you've got all those kind of things coming up there. Trips and visits where staff and councils are off-site. Your trip to the CCTV monitoring centre, for example. Another sexual harassment. I don't know what went on those coaches, but and any situation where potential. So there's lots of things there where we're almost making extra tasks and work. So be careful about doing that. Yes, if they can be almost like incorporated into some of the other things we already do, good. But be careful that you end up regular mandatory anti-harassment training will be completed by all staff.
By regular, we kind of mean like every 12 months.
Do we do anything like this now?
No, which is why we.
Right.
Yeah, but perhaps we should specify. We will do some basic training once every 12 months, rather than those words. And I'll take it home and have a look. And I'm involved with a couple of 2, 3, 4 charities, and I'll have a look what they have and see if there's some simpler.
I mean, also in that preventative measures number 10 there, we're doing detailed training on how to deal with complaints. So again, we've got our HR advisors. They're referred to quite a lot in terms of their support team and how they can get involved and help us out. So I think we can use them a lot more rather than taking a lot onto ourselves, because that's what we employ them for. I think as well, covering the town hall with posters about you know,
What
to do. Again, be careful. Any third party organisation the council deals with, you know, we're going to be giving this stuff out to everybody, just as we give out risk assessments and work with them again. So we'll be giving them this policy as well. So it's got a lot of mileage to cover, I think. So again, it's heading in the right direction. If it's something we have to have, we have to have it. So let's do it. Let's make it so it's as relevant for us and the resources we've got, the time we've got, the money we've got, etc.
I've got Councillor Lord and Councillor Clegg.
Oh, it's the way of the world, isn't it? That we have to risk assess nearly everything, but we've got to be careful that we don't water this down too much. Things have to be in place for our benefit, for the staff, for the public, for anybody that's having an event here outside. We know all this, so we've got to be really careful that what needs to be there is there and not try and, you know, thin it down at all.
But if you've got something that's pages and pages, people won't read it, will they? They'll just put it in a drawer. It's got to be like, you know, the main things on the first page.
Well, we can start with the things that are duplicated and then, you know, condense it down that way. You only need to mention it once, don't you, really? So, yeah.
Councillor Clegg.
Mr. Chairman, you've got to be careful how you handle this. Can I ask Gina initially where this policy has come from?
Again, it's come from the HR consultants that I did. It's mainly for a company, so I had to go through and take a lot out and make it more councilified.
Can I make a suggestion then, Chairman? In the many years that I was a school governor, which was about 30, we always used to have a policy of our own, ourselves, that wherever possible, if Lancashire County Council had their own policy, we used to try and use theirs, so that if anything ever went wrong and the whole thing fell apart, you were covered in lots of senses because you were using a proper and trustworthy policy and not one that wasn't fit for purpose. So can I suggest that we ask NALC if they've got one, and so that we're using a policy that will be fit for purpose, we use theirs if possible. We can alter the wording here and there and tweak it, but I'm concerned about us ending up with a policy that isn't a policy covering what it needs to cover, and it's not fit for purpose. So you can't start diluting this and taking stuff out because it may become not fit for purpose. And I think we're in a lot safer position if something did happen and something went wrong, if we had a policy in place that we could say was fit for purpose and we'd adhered to it. So I would ask if now have a policy.
Can I just say, when Councillor Busworth and I put a couple of events on, we used the Pendle Borough Council policy for risk assessment. In fact, they used to do it for us. Was it somebody called Terry Cox, I think, who I never met this person, but I could never decide whether it was a man or a woman. But anyway, they did the risk assessment for us from Pendle Council. So we followed their model and we felt safe with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll try NALC, and then if there's nothing there, we'll look at District Council or something like that.
If you have one, if you use now and something did happen untoward, we could be said to be at blame, but not if we stuck to their proper policy. But well, one of his own talks about your policy's not working. I think better.
Right.
But it's good.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Something like that. Are we talking more? Is this focus more on our staff and whether they
get out more carrots.
Yes, really. It's like things like Christmas parties and office parties and things like that. And yeah. So yeah, if you have an office party, then you have to risk assess. Yeah. So
Voting on that, not focusing on where the go, remember the public is in the same place, or whatever. So yeah, vote on, as you say, it might be examples, more schools, more relatives, more similar town council.
Yeah. Okay, we'll do that then. We'll have a look around at what's out there. It's acceptable. Right, where are we now? Item 13 is Pendleborough Council's footpath diversion, Lenshires Fold. Anybody want to speak on that? Yes, Alice? Well, I'll let Alice say her piece.
Just to say that Michael and I, we walked this diversion, completely happy with it. The only thing that we would say is that there's a footpath pole and sign at the bottom of Daisy Street, which is showing the old footpath, which is now obviously through the works. So that needs to be removed. And I would suggest that that pole and signage went higher up to the entrance of the footpath on Daisy Street. So that would be my only comment, that they remove the old signage and place it in the correct place.
Yeah, well, I think Gina's got a note of it as well. So yeah, we'll get to where it needs to be.
But apart from that, all good.
Excellent. Item 14 is LCC road traffic proposal. Where are we there?
I think this is removal of a disabled bay.
Yeah. Right, the next item is Colne Junior Council. Has there been any information on that?
Yeah, so it's just based on the last meeting. You may remember that from the first meeting they were given a challenge by the teachers, which was to choose a charity or charities, and then they have to hold an event to raise money for said charity. They did choose Open Door as their chosen charity. So that was one thing that they did. They also got given another project which was based on natural habitats in the school areas. So try and look at what they have in their school grounds, what insects are there, etc., or what plants, and to see how they can replicate that or increase that. Can you remember? Yeah,
no, all of this is true, and they're really working together really well as a group because they broke down the barriers between the different schools, and it was a barrier last year. Call me old-fashioned, but I thought, in a sense, it was nicer when they set their own agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Now, all their agenda's being set for them, and yeah, I'm finding it a bit problematic that they're having all of these challenges set. It's like one of those sort of television programs on Channel 4. They're rising to the challenge, and they're all good challenges, but the agenda's not coming from the children.
All right. Okay. Thank you. I think it's 9 o'clock, so we'll have to suspend standing orders so we can go on just another 10 minutes or so. Item 16 is it's Colne Rhythm and Blues Festival. That's just for information only. Just ticket sales, how they're going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Item 17 is planning. The first one is 28/0803/VAR. It's land at the west of Garfield, Skipton Road, Colne. Is there any comment on that? It's opposite Hartley Homes. That's have we any comments then? No, no comment.
Moving the entrance of the garages.
Right. Second one is right. Okay. So no comment. Are we all happy with that? Yeah. The next one is 22/0827/ADV. It's the Boundary Retail Park, Corporation Street, Colne. It's for advertisement consent for illuminated fascia signs.
It's the old, well, I say the old Argus building. It's Sports Direct that going in there. According to the signs, there you go. I mean, you can hardly object when you've got DFS and Next and Asda opposite. It's
no different to what were there before.
No comment, right? The next one is 24/0823/FUL. It's Tower Buildings, 2 Keithley Road, Colne. Yes, comments, please.
So if we can see the proposed drawings here, I am an innocent, obviously, in life, but I have rarely been so shocked as to see the existing facade rendered in these drawings. If you look at the existing facade, and that's not it, that's the proposed one, the existing facade bears very little relation to the building as it is now. Very little relation. So if you look at it, it shows all the doors and the windows the same height on the ground floor. That is not the case. There are stone cartouches above the doors, giving them prominence. They're not on the existing drawings. The widths of the doors, which are just single windows, couldn't possibly be doors. You'd have to be. So they're saying that is what the building looks like. And if we could go on the internet as well, and we could do, like the children do, where they say spot the difference. There are so many differences in terms of these openings compared with the actual building. David's looking at me confused, but it's so, honestly, it's so. And I just feel it's really disingenuous to have drawings of so-called existing when it doesn't look like that at all. So I've written to the planning officer. I've not received a reply, but I've written to say, A, it's impossible. B, it's a non-designated heritage asset, and it would definitely have a deleterious effect to punch these doors where doors were never intended, and where the original architect made it very clear where the doors were. There's like a door casement in stone, which isn't on these drawings. I do feel that this application is trying to pull the wool over our eyes. And I think that we should protect our non-designated heritage asset. It's a very, very important gateway building for Colne. The side of it's as prominent as the front, because we're all forced to go that way currently on the one-way system. But when it goes 2 ways, we'll see the side even more. I feel that it's in our neighbourhood plan. We should try to protect this building from this development of these unnecessary doors being punched into the facade, and also the plastic wainscoting that runs round that's currently there. People rang me up when it was being put there, and I was perfectly happy for it to go because it protects the original panelling that's underneath. The original panelling wasn't taken away. They just banged the plastic over the top. So that's something that we know is there and is a historic feature of this building. And in the proposal, if we go back to the proposed plans, we see the front. This is contrary to our neighbourhood plan on shop fronts, we lose the stall risers, we get floor to ceiling windows, floor to ceiling doors. I think it's the inevitable grey aluminium as well. So it's contrary to the Pendle SPD on good design of traditional shop fronts. It's contrary to our neighbourhood plan with the floor to ceiling glazing. Look at it down the side, it's all floor to ceiling glazing. It really would make a terrible mess of a very important building in Cone.
Well, it looks awful now, doesn't it? Well, it's untidy.
If I could say, Mary, that's often used in planning. They always say, well, it looks awful. It's going to look better if we tidy it up. That's not the case. That shabby shouldn't be. We shouldn't take that into account, really.
One of the problems with the building is it's been used for so many different things, from a tax office. Apparently, I don't know whether it's still there, but I was told quite some time ago that there was still a sprung dance floor in there that was the best for miles around. And in fact, it's just I've just realised that on that existing door is at the other end of the building. It's almost on the back street. So I think, yeah, I agree with the comments that we ask for it to A, represent what's actually there, and B, design something better. Which looks, I mean, it's got floor to ceiling things, but from the pictures I've seen, what they're doing with what was, I think it's last iteration zebras, they appear to be doing work downstairs there as well. So that may turn out to be.
Isn't that the soft play area?
Yeah, well, the bar was still in there, and from the pictures that they posted online, they're doing something on that
upstairs.
No, in the bar downstairs.
Right. Okay. Are we all happy with that? Yeah. That we put those comments in, councillors.
We're not happy.
We're not happy. We're not happy. We're not happy. We are very annoyed. The next one is 24/0831/HHO. It's 34 Gibfield Road, erection of a 2-storey side and rear extension with part single-storey extension. Is this on one of the semis or yeah, going up the top? Go on, you can speak.
Thank you, Chairman. It's just worth noting that LCC have raised an objection to this planning application on the grounds of loss of parking, because it is limited parking around the area. So
yeah, there's a school at the top, isn't there?
yes, so which, as those of us who've sat on any planning committee know, that it is very rare that LCC use the word objection, so it's likely to fail.
Right. Oh, good. Okay. So, do we need to say anything?
We say we understand that the county are objecting to the parking grounds. So, we agree. It's very tight around there, as we all know.
Yeah. So we support that.
Support that objection.
Yeah. The next one is 24/0819/LHE at 16 Birtwistle Avenue, Cone. It says permitted development. So, yes.
I was intrigued by this. I'd looked at it when it first came out, and then I just thought, oh, I've forgotten it. So I looked at it again this afternoon. I thought, it looks fine. And then on the portal, a neighbour has written, I have no objection to this. However, the architect's drawings as shown stop me accessing my house. And I looked at the drawings, and I screwed my eyes up, and I couldn't see what they were getting at all. I was hoping that somebody else had seen that and thought and can explain it.
I can explain that to you because right, those houses, they are because they've got like a gable end. That's like the access, because they've got to go through like one backyard into another, or one back garden into another back garden to get up the gable, and sometimes it's like they're taking the bins out onto the front street. So I think that's the only thing that she might be mentioning. If it does block access, but
in fact, that house is the house where the planning manager, who was the planning manager before they were.
Do we need to say anything or want to say anything?
Ensure that that grant of access is. That's the whole thing.
Oh. The next one is it's a TPO that's been put on a tree up. It's not. Yeah.
Yeah, it has
That's
been
yeah.
informational.
Yeah. And then next one, it's approved conversion of agricultural storehouse into a dwelling. So we don't have to say anything about that. 24/0862/HHO is 2 Stanroy Drive, erection of a 2-storey side extension. I think this came up at Colne area, didn't it? But I don't think, was it not? No? Oh, is it? All right. Oh, all right. Well, have we got anything to say?
So, you know, only his mother could love this house. It's got a sort of 70s, I think Ash would call it mid-century modern aesthetic going on, and the architect has preserved that. But again, I feel the plans are disingenuous. If you were to squint at the top right, the writing there, it would say Pebble Dash to match existing. But if you look at the original house, it has a tiny panel of Pebble Dash between the 2 picture windows, and the rest of it is stone. And the side of it is, some of it's Pebble Dash, but a lot of it's stone. So I wrote to the planning manager this afternoon, because I'm always very concerned when it's a semi. This semi has the extension set back. But if you can imagine, you've got to look at the whole building. You've got the mirror image of this house, which is stone, with the little Pebble Dash infill. And then now there'll be 2 stone things with Pebble Dash infill, plus a whole load of Pebble Dash that's nearly the same width as the house, as the extension. And I think really it would look so much better if the material that the sides built of were to be reused to build the facade of the extension. It would look so much better for the street and for the semi. That's my view.
Have we got anybody that will support that view?
I'll support Sarah's view. I know she likes mirror images on the semis, so I agree.
Okay. So we happy to write that in our response? Okay, everybody? Okay. Next one is 24/0863/FUL. It's Highclough Farm, Skipton Old Road, Colne.
Oh, is it?
Is it in Lancashire Bridge? All right, okay. So it's not us then? No. Next one, last one, 24/0858 RTD, 67 Albert Road, Colne. Change of use from an office to a dwelling and reinstating the windows and doors.
It's to be welcomed. It's what was Birkett Tomlinson's office.
Yeah.
The Tomlinson of which used to be on the planning committee back in the day, and there are handwritten notes in on the planning portal, and it does say that they've sourced doors from here, and all to make it sympathetic to the thing, and then they putting the bathroom back in, and goodness knows what it was converted in the 1960s. No, 1960, I think it says, rather than 60s. But it can do no harm. You know, maybe we can knock that. That's one to come off the 333. It's now 332.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
147.
right, lovely, thank you. Are we happy with that? Yep. Item 18 is correspondence received. Have there been any?
No. Yes. Is it the men's shed?
So just very briefly, I've been approached by Vicar of St Bart's, who's starting a men's shed in Cone, and they're looking for premises. You know what that is? I'm guessing it's the sort of reuse, recycling, fettling of broken things. Basically, it's like the Wombles, but for middle-aged men. And also they have a nice time at the same time. The Tordens got one of these. They're looking for a place to be, to call their home. There's a great big document that I can share with you all that explains, answers every possible question on this. But ultimately, it's not possible. It's not like Slimming World where they can just come into a room, use it and leave. It's not that. So it would have to be a permanent thing. So I wrote to Gina to ask whether it could be considered, and I'm sure that you'll all roll your eyes, but I think we just need to consider it, whether perhaps one of the rooms in the basement at the back could be potentially a base for this worthy group. When we were going to monitor with volunteers our CCTV, one of the thoughts then, years ago, was that a keypad could be put on. There could be some security, so the rest of the town hall is off limits. And it could be these rooms at the back, which were used for Pendle Borough Council men to have tea and play pool when they were off their shifts. They could be used for community uses such as this. So obviously there would be expense in terms of security, access, and all of that. But perhaps that's the thing that they could apply for a grant for if we were at all minded to make that space available. It's a sort of, the benefit of these groups is more than just the environment. It's the social aspect for men, really, essentially.
They're meeting in the old schoolroom at the moment. No. Yes, Dorothy.
There must be a great need for these men's dens because we have about 4 in Colne, and all doing really well. And men go with a wide variety of problems, or just because of loneliness, just somebody to talk to. I don't think you can have enough of these. I want to chip in here because I've just remembered something I wanted to tell everybody, and it's about men, and it's about Alicia House. And I went to a performance at the Muni midweek, and it was free, and the place was packed. And it was the lads from Alicia House who performed this like play, musical, dance thing on stage, and it was the most moving thing I've ever seen. And all these guys were in recovery from alcoholism, or drug addiction. And at the end, each one of them told their story. They sat in a semicircle on the stage and they told exactly how it was. And parents were there, and brothers and sisters, and they come from Leeds or Wakefield or Preston and come to support them. And at the very end, a guy sang. He told me he was 41. I spoke to him after, and he sang this song from a musical called Jekyll and Hyde. I've never heard of it, but apparently there is one. And he sang this powerful song, and he was just amazing. And at the end, I said, "Did you realise you had a standing ovation?" And he didn't, because he couldn't see for the lights. And he just burst into tears and said, "That is better than any drug to have that." You know, it was just incredible. So, you know, apart from Alicia House and the guys down there that have their problems, there's lots of men, I'm sure, that I think women tend to get on with it, don't they? They tend to get on with it, and perhaps men don't do the same. I don't know. Or maybe not, Sarah. Maybe not. I don't know. I get on with it.
Councillor Clegg.
Mr. Chairman, I think the problem with the basement in the cellar is, when we were saying, you know, there's lots of space down there and lots of empty rooms. That was before we had 3 lensmen. Since then, things have moved on. We've now got 3 lensmen, and we keep actually running out of space down there, both for storage and for somewhere for them, because some of these benches that's been repaired, some of them have been brought in-house and repaired in there, so they could do it in dry, out of bad weather and things. And we've also, since we've got the 3 lensmen, we've even had to hire some rented storage space elsewhere that we pay actually an arm and a leg for, because we haven't enough room of our own. So I don't think there's room down there for us to hand anyone over to anyone on a permanent basis, you know, because it's going to be 24/7 every day a week, isn't it? Because, like you said, they can't take their equipment home with them when they finish and bring it back day after. So I don't think that's possible. And another problem with cellar is, we all know that sometime during this next spring or summer, we're going to have the boilers done. And once we get the guys in there tearing out 3 boilers and put 3 new boilers in, and they're working down there as well as the lensman, I don't think there'll be any room. I don't think we can commit on a permanent basis. If they only wanted room for an odd morning a week or something like that, I think we could do it. But I don't think we can under certain, you know, current circumstances, because it's not only that, you know, with boilers and things to do and they'll need the space, it's that we're having to hire more and more, because we've increased the amount of space we hire now, haven't we? Down at where we have it hired, we ran out of space there and had to get a bigger unit, all because there isn't enough room in there to do it anymore.
St John's will be perfect.
Alice, you wanted to speak.
I think it is a really good idea for them to have this project. Because of the time limitation tonight, could we bring it to the next meeting so we can have a proper talk about it, and perhaps some of us can go down and see the facilities that we've got down there? And it might be, as Councillor Clegg says, it wouldn't be feasible, but could we do that for the next meeting?
Yeah, but I don't think the meeting was full. If there was enough room there, if there were any spare room down there, we think having to get a bigger unit to do a storage elsewhere. There's just no room.
Having been down there recently, I can agree with what David's saying. There isn't enough, unfortunately, there isn't enough room down there as it is, because we've still got all the old books down there as well. And
But we've got enough twice as big as this room elsewhere.
exactly, yeah.
Yes,
So, well, you've totally convinced me, and of course we know that we'd like ultimately to have stuff for exhibitions, etc. So I think, please could I ask that Gina writes to me formally with these arguments all laid out,
and then I can formally respond to them. They're a worthy group, but they can't get in the way of us delivering all the things that we're doing. So if you could write to me formally with all of that, I'd be grateful.
The
Is there
other thing
anywhere
is,
else in Colne?
It's not a meeting group, Dorothy. It's like they're doing turning, electrical work. They've got equipment. It's like, yeah, is it? Right, okay.
Yes, Michael.
the other thing with these groups is it has to be sort of, there needs to be a permanence to it. We can't sort of start something down here and then say, no, we can't do it. It has to be, it has to be a commitment to it. And we can't give that.
Is there any room in the place down near not the Crown, where the what's it, that go-karting place?
There might be,
Yeah.
but it would be, I'm guessing, expensive.
They'd
I
have
don't know.
to probably
We
pay.
looked at that for storage and it was really expensive.
I just know that Pendle Youth Orchestra practice there. They have a room upstairs every week. Oh, but anyway, well, we'll all try to think of somewhere they might be able to use. Yeah. Okay. Right. Date and time of next meeting is the 14th of January. It's early because a few of us are going on holiday.
Before we close, can I, on behalf of myself, wish everybody here and all their families a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Oh, thank you, Patricia. Yes, and same to everybody
Thank
else. Yes. And we turn it off.